Hello folks, today we're taking a look at some locomotives that were part of a donation to the train club that I belong to, and they had asked me to take a few of them just to kind of look them over and see what's going on with them. Some of them are brass, some of them are fitted with decoders, and I have no idea if they're really their status or if they even work. This one here, this one is an SP482 MT4 class locomotive, HO scale of course, from Sunset Models. It is a brass model, and it has a sound decoder installed, and it's got some wiring, and we're just gonna, you can kind of hear it hissing away there, but I want to go ahead and do a little testing, see if it runs, see if we can find out what kind of decoder is in it, see what value it holds for the club. But let's take a listen. So just right off the bat, it sounds like a soundtracks decoder to me. At least when I do function 10, that activates brakes, and that's typically a soundtracks feature. At least that's how it's mapped on the decoder. Okay, we have a headlight. It's a big ol' LED bulb there at the front. It seems to bleed through. It's bleeding through the housing, it looks like. But put it in reverse. Oh, and there's a rear headlight too, if it's in reverse. And that rear light is on, as well as the headlight, so they're not super independently controlled. Okay, 7 is a dimmer for the headlight and the taillight, it looks like. 8 is mute. Nine is a not particularly convincing grade crossing signal. Ten is some generic hiss of some sort. I'm gonna guess maybe it's a blower of some sort. 11 is the brake. Doesn't seem 12 does anything. 13 is your coupler clank. Oh, that was interesting. Okay, when I hit 14, it lost a lot of that momentum. It seems like it was in a switching mode before, and now it seems a little bit more responsive to the throttle. So I'm guessing this is switching mode, function 14, I guess. So it allows you to do a lot more precision handling without all the momentum. But honestly, I think it has too much momentum just when you have that turned off. It doesn't run too bad. It's a little coggy at really slow speeds, like steps 1 through 5. But not bad. Paintwork leaves a lot to be desired, but I mean, you know, home painted brass is like that. I'm sure I wouldn't do any better, all things considered. I'm going to leave function 14 on for the rest of this, just to see what else happens. Well, can't tell if function 15 does anything. 16 is a water fill. Some more hissing from 17. Not getting much out of 18. 19 is a wheel slip. Let's see if I can make that happen again. That's not a sound feature that I really care for. I don't think it's all that convincing. Alright, well, I'm gonna go no further than that. I am going to see if I can figure out what kind of decoder this is. Alright, if we go to CV8, we can see the manufacturer designated ID. It is 141, just in case you need to see. 141. So that tells me, if I go to my list of manufacturers, this is a throttle up decoder, which apparently was Soundtrack's at some point. I guess that's how they started. Hold on, let me read up on this a little bit. Okay, yeah, so this is a Soundtrack's decoder. So that explains a lot, all things considered. I'm gonna pop the tender and the shell off and just see kind of how this is wired up. It has a TCS 6-pin wire in here, and I've noticed that a lot of the locomotives in the slot that are brass have this connector. It's not a bad connector, I actually used this before. Yeah, we'll just take a look on the inside after we're done testing the locomotives and seeing how they operate, if they make sound, and what the deal is with them. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so next up we have this plastic model of a Southern Pacific GS locomotive, and it's making noise. It definitely has a sound coder installed. You can hear the pump, you can hear the hissing. The headlights are on, and let's see. Alright, so the headlight dynamo spools up, but I'm not getting any change in the lights from it. That's interesting. Let's turn that off. Let's see if I can get any movement out of it. Okay. So it recognized that throttle is up, but the motor is not responding. Alright, let's just kill that. Okay, 3 is a short whistle. 4 sounds like cylinder cocks. And can't really tell what 5 and 6 are doing. Nothing from 7. 8 is mute. 9 appears to be a water fill. Yeah, I am not sure about this one. One of the club members seemed to believe that this was, one of these may have had QSI in it. It's not TCS. It doesn't run anyway. You know, for as nice as these Bachmann models look, I feel like the reliability has always been kind of suspect. Even on the newer release ones, which is a shame. I wouldn't mind having one of these on the fleet, but you know, I want to make sure it works really well. This does seem to be a newer model, the newer version of this. It has the DCC on board labeling on the bottom of it, which tells me it's recent to an extent. It's not the old versions that probably get cracked gears, so I don't think there's a cracked gear issue here. But I'm gonna take it apart, take the shell off, and we'll just see what's going on, see if we can identify the decoder. Actually, let me try that through the power cab right now, just to see. And the power cab cannot read the CV of the decoder that is in this model, so a little bit of a mystery. So we'll open it up and see if there's any identifying marks. We'll crack it open and see. So next up is this Balao GS4, Southern Pacific locomotive as well, another brass model. This one, as you can hear, has sound. This one, I think, I don't know how well it's going to run. Even just looking at it, it just kind of looks like it wants to short out. The trailing truck here is covered in styrene to keep it from touching the frame here. I'm guessing this locomotive is probably more prone to shorting than others, but it's making sound, it's hissing, pumps are pumping. Let's try the whistle and see what happens. Alright, we've got a whistle. Do we have a headlight? We have a headlight, the dynamo's spooling up. And just a quick check, there is no tail light, just the headlight. Four is some very loud cylinder cocks, we're not going to mess with that. And you know, let's just go ahead and give it some throttle and see what it does. I was seeing sparks come from this wheel. Probably just some dirty wheels, to be honest, but... Again, paintwork is rather chipped. It looks like it was just painted on bare brass, but I don't know. Alright, we're going to go to the program track. I'm going to see if I can read the manufacturer ID of this decoder. Okay, this one is also 141, like the other one. That tells me this is a throttle-up decoder, an early Soundtrax model, or that's just what Soundtrax called themselves. So that's what that is, interestingly enough. It doesn't behave quite the same as the other one did. I tried using function 11 for braking, and it didn't really do anything. I tried function 14 to do the yard mode, the shunting mode, to get that more precision control, and it wasn't giving it to me. It's interesting. I'll crack this one open. I kind of want to see how it's set up as well. And you know, with all these, we'll go in and we'll clean out any old grease and we'll add more oil to give them a good checkup. But I'm not doing much else to these because they're not mine to really mess with. I'm not sure if the club is even going to want to keep these or sell them off, or if someone else wants to buy them. I'm not sure. But that's that one. So let's move on. So first up is the Spachman GS4. I think I'm going to take a look at this first, because it was the one that you couldn't read the decoder on with the power cab. And let's see. I'm going to guess it's the trucks. There's only one screw here. I'm wondering if that's holding the board in, but I don't think it's a clip fit. It might be a clip fit. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to crack this open. Let me get it off camera, and we'll open it in a second. Okay, so managed to get it open, and it is this screw that holds it in, but it's also got these tabs along these tanks here. Toolboxes, I'm guessing. So we're just going to go ahead and pry this up. It'll struggle a little bit. This also had, when they were trying to glue one of the step ladders back in the corner and glued the shell together, and I had to crack that open too. Oh, there we go. That screw came out. That's the screw that's holding it together in that little hole. Finally came out. No big deal. Just set it to the side. And this is what we're dealing with. It looks like a factory 8-pin board. And the purple wrap tells me that it's a Soundtrax decoder. I'm fairly certain Soundtracks uses purple shrink wrap like that. I don't really want to crack it open to try to see exactly what it is, but the speaker looks like it might be factory. It's all adhesive. Yeah, mounting adhesive. I've stopped liking using this sort of double-sided adhesive. To be honest, it's not my go-to anymore. It gets hard, it cracks, and it can make a mess. But yeah, so that's what we're dealing with, and I wonder why the locomotive itself is not moving. The decoder seems to work. Actually, part of me wants to put it in a model that I know does run and see if, I don't know, maybe if we can get it to, it's an 8-pin plug. I don't know if I can jerry-rig something up, but let's get this locomotive over here and see what we're dealing with. Let's use a couple of screws. You know what? I'm gonna look up a guide real quick on how to take the shell off of these before I go any further, and be right back. Give me 1 second. Okay, so after much research and screw removal, as you can see, finally got the shell off. So the main screws that I had to worry about were the two back here. I think one of these is busted, that one right there. And then the one right here, which is darn near stripped, so I'm not sure if we want to really reuse that. Got it off, and you can see this is a weird way to manufacture a locomotive. You have to have this plate on, which is separate from the rest of the chassis. I don't know why Spachman did this. It's very, very strange. And then the owner added the TCS 6-pin with all these spliced wires, and yeah, there is no coordination with what the wires are versus the colors. Gray to black, red to orange, gray to red. Yeah, I can't make heads or tails of that. But there's the motor, and all things considered, it runs, or at least I can spin it by hand. The contact there, looks like track wire there. That's connected. That's connected, I guess. Guess so. Kind of weird. I'm not seeing anything to indicate why this shouldn't just run when hooked up, but I'm gonna put some DC power to these pickups here on the motor and see if we can get it to spin at least under power. We'll see if we can get something going. Okay, so we have our trusty train set controller, and I've got one of the alligator clips here hooked up to the red, and I'm just gonna touch the other one to the black with a little bit of juice. We'll see if we can get something out of it. So I'm just gonna hold it in place. A little bit of power. I saw a little bit of movement. Okay, well, we know it runs. And in reverse. It's left arm. Okay, well. Test complete. So I don't really know what the trouble is. I think it must be a wiring concern here, and I'm wondering, you know, if we can get this working with. Just not sure why this doesn't work. Not seeing any pinched wires, nothing loose. It's just kind of a nest. Well, this goes a little bit beyond what I'm planning to do with these, so I think I'll get in touch with the folks at the club, see what they want to do. I could, if they wanted to keep this and use it as something that can run on the layout, I might offer to put in a decoder buddy and rewire it. I know these daylights though have their issues. That front bogie, that front pilot wheel, I know that likes to jump track, and it was very loose. So is this trailing set of wheels here. So, you know, I'll get back with them on that, and we'll see what happens to this one. I'm gonna reassemble it. Well, I'm gonna take some photos first and then reassemble it. Let's check out the next model on the list. Next up, we're taking a look at this Balboa Brass model, and here you can see the styrene pads that have been fitted to the trailing truck and the chassis to, I guess, prevent shorting. Yeah, it's the only places I see it, but let's put that aside for now. I went ahead and removed the 2 screws right here for the tank here, the tender. So it's there and there, and we're just gonna see what's inside. Okay, this one does have a current keeper. That's interesting. Alright, so it's another Soundtracks board with a TCS current keeper and this little speaker here. Got this magnet wire here for the rear light, which I don't think worked on this one. And it is missing a screw for this middle part, it's just these 2. So that's interesting. This one liked to short out and was giving me lots of fits on the track. Maybe someone can do something with it. I will say the person who put this together, they did mark the sides of the pins here, so you can see. Otherwise, you kind of have to just look at the colors of the wires to make sure you're plugging it in the right way to the locomotive. So I'll mention that I did make sure that I did plug them in correctly at the very least. All right, well. Next up is the locomotive, and it should just be, if I had to guess, this screw here, these 2 back here. Let me pop this off, and we'll take a look at what's underneath here. Okay, as mentioned, those 3 screws, one with the pilot wheels, and these 2 little screws at the back. Now let's make sure they stay together. At the cab are what hold this together, which is kind of traditional for brass. And we're just gonna see about taking it off. Alright, so there are some cables, some wires. So that is for the headlight, it looks like. Then we got this flywheel can motor with the rubber arm kind of deal. Not my favorite. I prefer a mechanical linkage that's a little more hardy, like a Hobbytown or even a Northwest Shortline sort of setup if I was doing this. I'm going to go ahead and take the gearbox out and open it up, maybe clean out any old grease, and we'll put some fresh grease in there just because we have it open. Why not? It's you know, part of the process. Maybe it will help with the running qualities a little bit. And actually, you might not be able to see if I can get this in focus. That rear driver, one of the springs is just kind of sitting, not doing its job. You can see the other drivers have springs seated properly, except for that one on the fireman's side. I'm going to see if I can reseat that as well. Hopefully it doesn't go flying off into the carpet because I will not be able to replace it. Let's see what we can do with this. Okay, so I got the gearbox cover off. It's these tiny screws right here. And you can tell, good God, it's just this gunk. So we've got our odorless mineral spirits here. And I'm just gonna go to town cleaning this out. Like, I'm not even sure. Has it ever been re-greased since coming out of the factory? I guess is a question. Sorry if I keep going out of shot, I don't mean to. It's just I'm focusing on the part and I'm not focusing on the camera itself. And God, look at that. It's all over my fingers too. It's not pleasant. Let's see if we can. Just try to get as much of that out of there as possible. And we'll do both sides. We'll get the worm gear and bearings too, which is are also coated in this gunk. Maybe we can improve performance just a little bit. For these models, they really only asked me to take a look at them, tear them down, see what kind of decoders they had, if they'd be valuable enough to the club. Oh, that's way better. Let's get a toothpick. Get in there. I'm not entirely sure that this is worth use for the club, because the club wants, you know, stuff that's super reliable and kind of ready to go. DCC is great, but I'm not sure this thing could traverse the club track easily without too much fuss. There's that gear there. I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up off camera, and I'll show you the results once we're done. Okay, after much scrubbing away, we have a clean gearbox. Much better. This was just covered and caked in black gunk, this goo, and was not a fan of that. So we'll be replacing that with a nice Labelle 106, and we'll hit it with some 107 for the bearings, but the gears get the 106 grease. Next up, I want to see if I can get that spring back into place. I'm a little nervous about this, but once that gets back into place, we'll put the gearbox back together and, you know, call it a good one. Okay, was a bit fiddly, but I finally got that spring seated into place, and you might not be able to see it, but it's in there. That one's in there. And getting these bearings back into their slots was kind of a pain in the butt too, but yeah, I think we're okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put the base keeper plate back on. Should be pretty straightforward there. Okay, so I've added a little bit of grease here on the worm, a little bit down there, a little bit along there as well. I'm going to add just a little bit of oil on these bearings. There's a drop there, drop there, drop there, and on the outside. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this gearbox, put it back, make sure these screws go into place. We're going to get this reassembled, put the rubber drive train rubber thing back into place. It hasn't cracked or anything. It seems to be holding up, and I'm not going to mess with it. But we'll get this back into place and put everything back together, and maybe it'll run just a little bit better. And after some fiddling, those final screws are in, and just a point to note, put the rear cab screws, those two, in before you put the pilot screw in. It goes a little bit faster, goes a little bit easier to do that first, because this back part will shift around and the screws are a lot harder to get into. So that's that. There's that one. I guess the last one we have to take a look at is the Sunset models, the 482, which I think was the best out of this lot, all things considered. So let's crack it open, see what we're dealing with. Okay, so next is the 482, the Sunset models model, and I undid the screws already, and we have another Soundtracks decoder and a Soundtracks current keeper, and the speakers just kind of loose. They were originally in this baffle, and I guess the glue failed, and the baffle was up here attached by some sticky tack, and yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get these glued back in and just get that put back in there, because this one was really quiet and I was wondering why, and it's no, the baffles don't work. So, and then I went ahead and undid the screws for this model as well. It has these tiny cab screws in the pilot, and real quick I'll mention See, we got these pickups right here on the front soldered in, which is interesting. So we'll go ahead and... Alright, well, yep. So there's the pickup wire going through the chassis over this axle. Just taped in place with some Captain tape, it looks like. Got the headlight wires going there. Is yellow headlight? I thought yellow was tail light in decoders. I don't remember. Use the decoder buddy and it just kind of tells you everything. That's what I do anyway. So nice motor. It's got the clear tube of rubber. That's pretty solid. I'm gonna pop this open and just see if it's if it needs some attention. For the most part, the wheels are pretty clean. These trailing wheels need some attention, and pilot wheels seem to be good. And the wheels on the tender also looked fine. I don't know why these trailing wheels are as dirty as they are, but yeah, we'll give this one the once over like I did the other, and get to it. And that's that. Okay, so we got cover off. Let's see what we're dealing with. Some old grease, some gunk, but nothing as bad as the previous one. Not great, but yeah, we'll go ahead and clean all of this up, put some fresh lube into it, reassemble it, and yeah, this was the better of the performing models, I think. And I think this one has the most potential of being a good club runner if that's what they want. Or, you know, if not, this would make a good model for someone to rehabilitate more completely. Maybe do a little rewiring. Part of me wants to go into my models and pull out one that has a Soundtracks decoder. I think I only have the two. I think it's the Broadway Limited Union Pacific Mountain and the Amtrak Acela have Soundtracks decoders in them. I guess I have the UK Steam decoders as well, one in the ROD 280, and I wonder what they show up as newer Tsunami decoders, because I assume these are Soundtrack Tsunami decoders, and I'm not sure why the list lists them as throttle up still, but it was an NCE list of manufacturers, so it's probably just an old name. I'm guessing manufacturer 141 is just Soundtracks. I didn't look too deeply into it. So at least the decoder works. Everything seems to be functional. We'll fix up that baffle, and we'll get this one sounding good and running good, and some fresh grease, some fresh oil. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna put these all back together, and I'll see you very soon. Before I wrap up, I want to mention briefly that in one of the boxes that these models were in was a receipt from Litchfield Station showing the full DCC install. So this was done by a person who was hired to do it. It was for the Sunset Brass model, if I remember correctly, and it shows Tsunami 2 decoder. So all my thinking that this was an old decoder, no, I think the NCE list of manufacturers I had just lists that number as throttle up, which is Soundtrack's old name. So no big deal there. It makes a lot more sense now. These models haven't been run in about 5 years is what I've been told. So Tsunami 2 was definitely around 5 years ago, and current keepers have also been around for a while, so no big deal there. These all have Tsunami 2. Why the Spachman GS4 doesn't read, I don't know. Why it doesn't run, I also don't know. I kind of want to rewire it, as mentioned before, but I'm not sure I'm going to get around to that. I need to check in with the folks at the club, see what they want to do, how they want to proceed with that. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed these teardowns. It's a fun thing to do, I think. It's kind of cathartic, cleaning out the old grease and checking out the insides and seeing how these models are set up. Sometimes you find some surprises, sometimes you get something that likes to short out a lot, sometimes you find that they run really, really well. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next one very soon.